Hi, welcome to all of the parents of our second graders who are preparing for their first Holy Communion. I wanted to take a moment to share with you a short video that just provides an overview for what our first communion celebrations will look like at all of the upcoming masses in the Easter season. I know that Ruth has sent out the Sign Up Genius, and you have jumped in and you've found the dates and the times that work for you. And so with all of that opening up now, I wanted to share with you just, again, a real brief overview as to the flow from when you and your families first arrive all the way through to the end of the Mass. And some of what I'm sharing here, some of our parents have seen already. Those of you that were able to attend some of the meetings that Ruth and I had hosted, this will look very familiar to you. But for the sake of those parents who were not able to attend those meetings, we thought it would be good to share this overview. And so I'm going to step us through just some of the details here, again, just to give you a sense of that whole flow from start to finish. And so one thing that you know already is that our first communions will be taking place in the context of our Sunday Masses. And at each of those Sunday Masses during the Easter season, where we will be celebrating First Communion, we'll have up to 6 pews that are reserved in that center left section. You can see in the photo here which bank of pews that is. And so we have up to 6 First Communicants at each of those Masses. And normally we would have 1 family per pew. However, if you have a lot of family coming in from out of town, grandparents or aunts and uncles, if your family won't fit in 1 pew, please let us know. We are very happy to go ahead and reserve a pew behind that initial pew where your child and the immediate family is going to be. When you arrive, just let our greeters know that you have a lot of family, and they'll be ready to set aside an additional pew for you if needed. And when your family's seated in a pew, our First Communion children are going to be on the end of the pew closest to the center aisle. That will allow the priest to check in with them before Mass starts, but it also allows your child to be out of the pew ahead, leading your family down the aisle so that they can receive first, and then moms and dads and other family members will receive communion after them. And then also on the end of the pew, right next to where your child will be seated, you can hang your First Communion banner. I know a lot of our families are excited about that activity for their children. And so if you bring those with you, they can be hung right on the end of the pew, right next to where your child is going to be seated. Now, let's see. Also, please make sure that your children come dressed in their First Communion dresses and suits. I guess it's best and easiest to get most of that work done at home. Although in prior years, for example, some of our girls have come and just at the last minute before they get into the pew, moms and dads are adjusting the veil or maybe a little crown of flowers, just getting a tie adjusted on their son. But for the most part, it's safest to come already dressed in their dresses or their suits. And families, please arrive 15 minutes before the start of the Mass that you have selected. That gives you a chance to check in with the greeters. They have a list of the families that we expect at each Mass according to the way that you signed up. So they'll be on the lookout for you. And when you arrive, they're going to go ahead and just make note of that. And that lets us make sure that we have all of the families that we're expecting at that Mass. So arrive 15 minutes before, get checked in. And then as you move into the church itself, families, you are invited to take any of those 6 reserved pews that are not already taken by another First Communion family. So basically, the seating in those reserved pews will be first come, first serve. And so we will not assign you to a particular pew. Just know that 6 pews will be set aside. You're welcome to be seated in any of those that you would like. And then once you're seated, before Mass begins, the priest who's celebrating the Mass, he is going to come and visit with each of the children and their families just prior to the start of Mass. And so we'll usually just kneel down, we'll greet the children, we'll let them know how excited we are for them. It gives us a chance to let them know that we've been praying for them. And then also an opportunity just to answer any last minute questions that they might have and to review just the basics of that moment when they're going to be coming out of the pew to receive communion for the first time. We find that a lot of the kids just before the start of Mass are a little nervous, and because it's new, they don't always remember the details that we've prepared them on. So we will make sure just to give them a little reminder of them coming out of the pew, bowing, and then giving a nice strong amen when they're presented with the host and the minister, the priest says the body of Christ, turning their hands into that throne to receive him, and then consuming the host, and then moving around back into the pew from the other side. So it's very simple, but we have found that it's helpful for our children to get a little bit of a reminder just before the start of Mass. And then also at that point, I will usually check with the parents just to make sure that during the Mass, during the announcements and at the end of Mass, just want to make sure that it's okay to mention your children by name. And so you'll see here that during the pre-Mass announcements, the priest, we will usually mention each of the children by name. That gives our whole parish family who's at that Mass the opportunity to be praying for them and just to share with the larger parish family the celebration that we have at that Mass, even down to mentioning each of your kids just by name with their first name. Over the last few years, occasionally there have been some children who are just so shy that they do not want their name mentioned at all. And so when the priest comes and greets each of the children and the families before Mass starts, if your child really is just more comfortable not having their name mentioned, please let us know, and we will make sure that we don't do that. But we'll check with you before Mass starts to find out about that. And then from there, we begin the Mass. Everything is just the normal flow for Mass with the opening hymn, all the way up through the readings, and then into the celebration of the Eucharist itself. And at the offertory, we would love to have our first communion children bring forward the gifts of bread and wine. And so at each Mass, we normally have maybe 2 or 3 or 4 gifts of bread and wine that are to be brought forward. At most of our first communion Masses, we will have 6 children. And so what our greeters will help to do is just make sure that when it comes time to the offertory, we'd love to bring all 6 kids to the back of the church for the offertory. And then however many gifts that we have, we'll give those to the children. And those who don't have a gift to carry, we'll ask them to still be part of the procession to accompany the whole group up as all of them make that presentation of the bread and the wine. And then we'll move from the offertory into all of the Eucharistic prayers. And then at communion time itself, just before communion happens, the priest will just give a little reminder to the children and to the whole congregation about the gift that they are about to receive. And it gives us the opportunity just one last time to give a little reminder, but also an encouragement just to help each of our children's hearts to be really wide open to receive with joy and really with awe and wonder this gift that they're about to receive. And then from there, the priest will step down to his normal area where he distributes communion in that center left section. And beginning with the first pew, each child and their family, they're going to exit the pew as we usually do during communion to receive Jesus. And so our first communion child will lead out of the pew. Moms and dads, you're going to be right behind them. And then At that time, our other ministers, they will have begun moving to the other sections to distribute Holy Communion. But one pew at a time, each of our children will come forward. Moms and dads, you're going to be immediately behind them. So you're going to be very close to right there with them as this happens. And then after your children receive, then they're going to make their way around to the other end of the pew to return back in. And then moms and dads, you and any other children and the rest of your family will then be there to receive as well. And so the reason that we have all of the children in one section of pews is because with their first communion, the church asks that the child receiving his or her first communion receive directly from the priest who has celebrated the Mass. And so in order to honor what the church asks us for that, we have everyone in that one same bank of pews so that each of the children are able to come to the priest to receive their first Holy Communion. And then, as I mentioned, the rest of the congregation, they are receiving then as well. And then we'll move through the whole flow for communion. At the very end of the Mass, the priest will invite the congregation to express their joy over your child's first communion. And this always just naturally and spontaneously leads to a lot of clapping, just really sincere joy from our parish family over the gift that your child has received. And then at the very end of Mass, once everything is done, each of our families, you are invited to take photos in the church. You're welcome to come right on up to the carpet that is there before the main altar. That gives a lot of room and just makes for some beautiful photos. And just so you know, the priests are also very happy if you'd like to be part of those photos. So please just let us know if you'd like us to join you for any of those photos after Mass with your children or with the family. And again, we're very, very happy to be part of that. And so this is just a real big, broad overview of what the celebration is going to look like. Parents, if you have any questions over this, don't hesitate to reach out to either myself or to Ruth Gorski. We will be very happy to answer any questions that may come up as you're preparing for and getting ready for your child's first communion. So please know that we're praying for you, and we are here ready to support you and be with you in all of this. So again, do not hesitate to reach out to us with whatever may come up. And we're really looking forward to being with you for each of your child's first Holy Communion celebrations. God bless.